Hi, this is Sehul Shah here at DeciZone. Today I want to talk about creating navigable flowcharts and then modifying the existing flowcharts. I recommend that you first go through the DeciZone Training 1 introduction video to get a good overview of the platform. You can find the link to the Training 1 video in the feature guide section of your account. In this video, we are going to build upon the basic concepts discussed in our Training 1 and get a detailed look at the DeciZone flowchart editor. We will also look at how to manage your content as well as managing access to that content. Before we start, let's briefly recap a few basics. Throughout the video, we will be referring to topics explained in the feature guide, so feel free to refer to them at your convenience. In DeciZone platform, flowcharts are like your documents and are organized in the category tree under organizations, categories, subcategories, and goals. Goals in DeciZone are like the main question or the problem definition, and the flowcharts created under a particular goal are the author's opinion at addressing that goal question. Also, a goal may have multiple flowcharts created by different authors under itself. Inside DeciZone, a flowchart is a logical structure put together by its author by assembling different types of logical nodes, like statements, decisions, multiple choices, etc. Throughout this video, I'm going to refer to all these different types of logical nodes collectively as boxes to keep it simple. Each type of box selected by the author takes a step in the forward direction and may also carry out an action depending on the type of the box. When you want to edit a flowchart in DeciZone, you need to enter the edit mode by clicking on the edit toggle. The first thing you see will be a flowchart version window listing all the versions of a given flowchart. Let's talk about flowcharts and flowchart versioning. DeciZone platform allows versioning for your flowcharts seamlessly managed behind the scenes. When a flowchart is first created, it gets version 0. You can keep modifying version 0 as needed. You can also clone an existing version to create a new version. So it's quite possible to end up with multiple versions of the same flowchart. It is important to understand that versioning a flowchart is not the same thing as making copies of the flowchart. You can have multiple versions behind any flowchart, but only one version is exposed for each flowchart, and only the users with edit privileges for this flowchart have access to the other versions. This is where the master version flag comes into picture. A flowchart with multiple versions is not visible to anyone other than the author unless the author marks one of the versions as a master version. A flowchart created by an author will be visible under a goal only when that flowchart has a master version identified by its author. So you can think of the master version flag as if you are saying, this flowchart is ready to be shared. Go ahead and let other members discover or see this flowchart under its goal. And then when they click on this flowchart, show the master version of the flowchart to the viewer. The author can change the master version of the flowchart anytime she wants, and the next time the viewer opens that flowchart, the new master version is displayed. This is actually a big deal. It allows the author to work on a new flowchart version while everyone else is seeing the master version. When the new flowchart version is ready for prime time, then all the author has to do is to change the master version, and from that point onwards, everyone will see the new master flowchart version. The master version of a flowchart cannot be modified. But if you want to make minor modifications to the master version itself, but not make a new version, then you can remove the master status for the short time you are editing that version, make your changes, and then make it the master version again. Doing it this way will make the master flowchart inaccessible for the time you spend editing it, but you will not have to create another version for the quick modifications. For most situations, it's probably easier and simpler to just make changes by turning off the master version status and then turning it back on after you are done making the changes. As a best practice, try not to have more than 2 versions of any flowchart to keep your content manageable. Otherwise, it's possible to lose track of what changes went into which versions. It is important to understand that a flowchart version is a slightly modified copy of the same flowchart, and so it should be addressing the same goal statement. To create or edit a flowchart, the author must be logged into their DeciZone account. Before the flowchart is created, the author decides if the flowchart will be owned by a business organization or it will be owned by the public organization under their authorship. By default, all flowcharts are created as private to the author and to the organization selected, but they can also be shared as either published or public as desired by the author. We will discuss the different ways a flowchart can be shared later in this video. Now let's talk about editing a flowchart. Flowcharts are displayed only in view mode by default. To create or modify a flowchart, the author or anyone with the edit privileges must transition that flowchart to the edit mode. When you toggle the edit mode to on, you will see the list of versions available for this flowchart. From here, you can select the version as well as the action you want to perform on that version. Let's select the edit option to open the particular version in the edit mode. When the edit mode is turned on, a yellow button with a gear icon is displayed on the outgoing connections of the current box in the center layer. Click on this yellow button to open the DeciZone flowchart editor. DeciZone flowchart editor has a few unique strengths by design. First, all of the editing functionality is available even on your mobile phone browser. This allows you to easily edit flowcharts on the move and maybe even by leveraging the dictation features of your phone's keyboard. Second, the editor allows you to make changes only to the current box, which is the box in the middle layer. So you can navigate to the appropriate box and then click on the yellow gear button to make changes to that box. Third, the editing menu tools available inside the editor panel are contextual based on the box type of the current box, as well as the position of the box inside that flowchart. This is also one of the ways DeciZone platform provides some guardrails and encourages some best practices. And finally, fourth, wherever it makes sense, a brief description as well as best practices are presented just when you are about to use a specific tool. The editing tools available inside the editor generally fall in three general categories. Tools for making changes to the current box, tools for adding or inserting new box types, and tools for managing bookmark links. Don't worry, we will discuss all of them pretty soon. All right, enough of that. Now let's create a new flowchart. A good flowchart is one with a well thought out logic. This logic thought process is uniquely yours, and we highly recommend that you prepare at least a rough diagram on a piece of paper and thoroughly review it before jumping into creating it inside DeciZone. Having this rough diagram will avoid many common logical mistakes and will be overall more convenient for you. So let's say we have brainstormed with our team and finalized this logical process flowchart. This is a simple flowchart, and yours may be more detailed based on your requirements. In our example flowchart rough diagram, we have decision boxes, statements, user input boxes, send email box, as well as a multiple choice box. Here is how it would look like after we are done creating it in DeciZone platform. Now that we have a pretty good idea of what logical structure we need to put together, let's go ahead and create a new DeciZone flowchart. Along the way, we will share several best practices. There are two ways to create your flowchart. First way is to use the Create Flowchart wizard, always available on top of the screen. You first select who will own the new flowchart, then you select the appropriate category, subcategory, and the goal to create your new flowchart under that goal. The second way to create the flowchart is when you go through the category tree and select a specific goal statement. Under that goal, you will see the existing flowcharts addressing that goal. Click on the Create button for a new flowchart under that goal. The new flowchart is created the same way regardless of which method you use. When you create a new flowchart, the platform takes a few actions automatically for you. First, it turns on the edit mode. Second, The platform gives your new flowchart a name by combining your display name with a number. You can change this flowchart name anytime you want in the flowchart properties. Third, the platform creates the version 0 of your flowchart. Fourth, it creates the first box of your flowchart and automatically gives it a caption with the flowchart name and the version number. Fifth, it exposes the flowchart editing tools by clicking on the yellow gear button on the current box. At this point, we can follow our flowchart diagram along and create the same logic in the DeciZone platform by adding the appropriate logical boxes in the same order. When you click on the yellow gear button for the current box, you will see all the editing tools that are applicable to the current box. Remember, you are making changes only to that single box in the center layer. Since this is the first box we are adding to our flowchart, it is highly recommended that you add a statement box with a short one-sentence explanation about the purpose of the flowchart. All you have to do is to provide the text caption for your flowchart boxes, and the editor will do all the formatting and connecting arrows for your flowchart using a standardized layout design. This standard layout allows you to focus completely on the business logic of your flowchart and not worry too much about the formatting, saving you a lot of time. When you click on the Save button, the new box is added to the flowchart and made the new current box. Let's go ahead and add our second box, which in our example is going to be a decision box with a simple question with a yes or no answer. Just click on the yellow gear button. Now you can see that a lot more editing choices are available. Each editing tool is represented by a small diagram to easily remind you what action it takes. The green components are the ones being added, while the red components are the one being removed. For now, let's select the tool for adding a decision box. Just enter our caption and click Save to add the new decision box to our flowchart. The new box we created becomes the current box and is emphasized in the middle of the screen. Remember, the editing tools menu allows you to make changes only to the current box. So if you want to make changes to any box, just make sure it is the current box and open the editing menu. Let's pause for a second and take a look at this decision box. The caption for this decision box is supposed to be a very simple question whose answer is always going to be either a clear yes or a clear no. In fact, the viewer of your flowchart will click on the yes or no button to answer your question. So make sure you frame the question in a simple spoken language, just like you are having a conversation with the viewer. So for a decision box, instead of asking a question like, which color do you like? You should ask a yes or no question like, do you like the orange color? Try your best to keep these questions as simple as possible because it will be easy for your audience to answer short and simple questions. Your decision box gives us two branches, the yes answer branch and the no answer branch. So first, let's go ahead and add our next box on the yes answer branch, and we will come back to add another box on the no answer branch later. At this time, you have a few more editing tools available as applicable to the current box, which is a decision box. We want to select the tools for adding a new statement box on the yes answer branch. This creates a statement box and makes it the current box. But we still need to add the box on the no answer branch of our decision box. So let's make our decision box the current box by clicking on the decision box. Now click on the yellow edit button for the no answer branch and let's add our new statement box on the no answer branch. Let's step back to our decision box one more time just to review what we created. It looks good. We have added one statement box on each of the branches of our decision box now. We are not done with creating our example flowchart, but let's say at this point as the author of the flowchart, I want to review the whole flowchart in a single diagram. The whole flowchart view feature is always available to the author of the flowchart right next to the edit toggle button. It shows your whole flowchart in a single page. When you are done creating the whole flowchart, you can print to a PDF file. Try adjusting the page size, page layout, and the print scale to fit the whole flowchart in your page in order to take a backup copy of your flowchart. We are still not done creating our flowchart, so let's continue and quickly add the other boxes of our example flowchart. The next box we are going to add is a user input box on the no answer branch. This box allows the author of the flowchart to ask the viewer to enter some information in a form input area. To create this box, we just give it the text caption for the instructions and click Save. Remember, the information entered by the viewer in this user input box is included in the activity log email. So we need to make sure that the email log box is added after the user input box on the same branch. Let's go ahead and add it now. Let's select the email log box tool. Depending on your account privileges, you may be able to select the email address where the activity log email will be sent. Let's save it. The email log box is always the last box on any branch. And so our branch is now terminated with the email log box, and we cannot add any more boxes after that. Make sure and add the email log box only at the end of the branch. When your viewer reaches the email log box, it is considered that the viewer had completed the flowchart journey, and an email with a full transcript of all the steps the viewer took is sent to the email address specified in the email log box. We are still not done creating this flowchart. Let's review the whole flowchart view to see where we stand. Looks like the no branch is looking okay. Now let's try to grow the yes answer branch of our decision box by adding a multiple choice box or MCB after this statement box. MCB is a very special box for the structure of your flowchart because it divides a single branch of your flowchart into multiple branches corresponding to each of the choices. The MCB in our whole flowchart view may look like a color-coded group of choice boxes, but the viewer is shown just a simple drop-down list of these choices. When the viewer selects a choice from the drop-down list, she navigates forward on the selected choices branch. A word of caution though, while an MCB looks like a very useful box, you need to use them very carefully because if you have more than a couple of MCB boxes in your flowchart, the flowchart structure can quickly get complicated for you to maintain. This is why we highly recommend using simple decision boxes wherever you can instead of using multiple MCBs. Also, please note that to encourage some best practices in our structure, an MCB box can only be added when the current box is a statement box. So you will not find the option to add an MCB box when the current box is any box other than the statement box. So let's go ahead and add our MCB. Let's bring our statement box in the center layer. Now let's go to the edit menu and add a multiple choice box for the MCB. The MCB edit tool has quite a few options, so let's understand this properly. Let's follow the steps in order as explained in the description to create the MCB with its choices. First, let's give our MCB the text caption, which will tell the viewer to select one choice from the drop-down list of choices. In step 2, let's customize the list of choices now. Please note that any MCB will have a minimum of 2 choices always available, the default choice and the other choice. You can add as many more unique choices as you like. The default choice can be renamed, but it cannot be deleted. But the other choice can neither be renamed nor can it be deleted. Any extra choices you add can be renamed or deleted. Let's add a couple of choices and save to create our MCB. Now that we have an MCB box with a drop-down list of all the choices we entered, each choice is a new branch separating from our main branch. For our example flowchart, we will need to add new statement boxes after each of our choices to grow each of those branches, and we do that by going to the edit menu for our MCB. You will probably have noticed that we have a few more editing options available when we try to edit any existing MCB compared to what we had available when we first created the MCP box. This is because now we have the tools available to edit each of the choices as well as adding more boxes after these choices. We highly recommend that the first box you add after each of your MCP choices be a simple statement box. Statement boxes are very special because they can be used for all sorts of things like inserting other boxes, bookmark links, etc. So let's go ahead and add some statement boxes. To add a box after a choice, let's click on the edit option for that choice and scroll down. We can make changes to the text caption for this choice right here if needed. Let's go ahead and select the option for adding a statement box and scroll down. Add the caption for our statement box here and click Save. This creates a new statement box after our choice, and we can confirm that in the choices table in the next box column. We will talk about the bookmark links column in a minute. I'm now going to add the box after our second choice by following the same steps. We still have this last choice, Other, which we cannot remove, and so we need to handle what happens when the user does not want to select any of the remaining choices in the drop-down list and selects the other choice. We are going to present the viewer with an appropriate message in a statement box. This is a good time to review how our flowchart looks, so let's click on the whole flowchart view feature. Notice how our MCB and its choices are represented with their separate decision boxes in a different color. These choices will still be presented to your viewer as a drop-down list. And here are the statement boxes following each of the MCB choices. Also, you can see if I follow this branch and reach the end of the branch, an email will be sent out with the transcript. We will test it out in just a minute. All right, so seems like we are done creating our flowchart. We can now end the edit mode by clicking on the edit toggle. Of course, we can come back and make changes to this flowchart based on the feedback from our audience so that you can drive the continuous improvement in your process. Now we have created the version 0 of our new flowchart. If you want to make more changes to your version 0, then just click on the edit toggle and then find the version you want to edit and click on the edit icon. You can also just view a particular version or create a clone of that version into another version of this flowchart. Right now, since we are in the view mode, let's see how our viewers will experience this flowchart. I'm going to quickly navigate through the flowchart so we can take a look at the activity log email that gets sent out automatically. Now let me open the email I just received from this interaction. The first part of the email includes a lot of details regarding the viewer's interaction with your flowchart. The start time and the end time could tell you how much time it took this viewer to reach your customized recommendation based on their own choices. The second part of the email is a very detailed transcript of all the steps the viewer took inside the flowchart. It gives you the timestamp of the viewer's click, the type of the box, the answer from the viewer, as well as the name of the flowchart. By default, you can receive these activity logs in your email, but you can also have these activity logs saved in your ticketing system, CRM, or ERP systems. With this email, we completed a full cycle of creating a flowchart and then navigating it like one of your viewers and then reviewing the activity logs. It took us some time to discuss the creating process, but you might be able to create a whole flowchart in a matter of minutes, and your viewer can navigate the flowchart and receive your customized recommendations usually in less than 30 seconds. What we just created was a flowchart based on our simple example. Let's switch gears a little bit and explore a powerful feature that DeciZone provides to connect an existing box with another existing box called bookmark link. Bookmark links are just like regular connectors, but there is one important difference. When you create a new box, the new box is automatically connected using a regular connection arrow. Bookmark links, on the contrary, connect two existing boxes from either the same flowchart or two different flowcharts. In other words, a bookmark link connects an existing source box with an existing destination box. Let's see how we can create this bookmark link in DeciZone platform. Once again, bookmark links are a very powerful feature and they enable a truly modular design for your flowcharts. But like anything else, you need to plan these links carefully to be able to easily maintain your flowcharts. Creating this bookmark link has two steps. The first step is to create a bookmark alias on the destination box. Just click on the bookmark icon next to your current box and give it a name that you can remember this box with. This alias just gives you a friendly way to reference a particular box. Bookmark aliases are useful in several features in DeciZone platform. From time to time, bookmark aliases may get deleted when you take some actions on your flowchart. So the best thing to do is just to create one when you need one for using with some feature and then forget about it. The second step is to add the bookmark link itself. So let's open our flowchart in the edit mode and go to the source box, open the edit menu and select the tool to create a bookmark link. Now you need to select your bookmark alias we just created in the drop-down list and click Save. This will create a bookmark link between the source box and the destination box, and it's represented using a dashed line in the user interface. Let's look at our example flowchart and add bookmark links after each of the MCB choice branches, so when the viewer navigates through each choice, they will be taken to the same user input box for entering customer feedback. That way, everyone that starts navigating our flowchart will end up in the same box at the end of the journey, and every time an email will be sent with their activity log. In our case, the source and destination boxes of the bookmark link are both in the same flowchart. But you can also create bookmark link to a destination box which is from a different flowchart. I'm going to quickly create bookmark links for our choices. Now let's review our flowchart in the whole flowchart view. As you can see, each of the choices now converge into the same user input box because of the bookmark links we have added. Let's see how it will look to a viewer when they're navigating this flowchart. They will just follow the bookmark link to the user input box as we intended. When our user input box is the center box, you can see all the incoming bookmark links shown here as dashed lines, as well as the source boxes in the previous box layer. This is an easy way to know how many bookmark links are converging into your user input box and which source boxes are they connecting from. If you ever have to delete a bookmark link, just remember that you need to edit the source box and use the tool to delete the outgoing bookmark link. As you can see, it's very easy to create a bookmark link by selecting your bookmark alias in the drop-down list. But before you are able to create these bookmark links, your bookmark alias needs to satisfy two conditions. First, your bookmark alias must be created on a box that belongs to the master version of your destination flowchart at the time this bookmark link is created. Second, if the destination box is in a different flowchart than the source box, that destination flowchart needs to be a publicly shared flowchart. We will discuss how flowchart sharing works in a minute. So if either of these two conditions are not satisfied, you may not see your bookmark alias in the drop-down list. So if you don't find your bookmark alias in the drop-down list, make sure it satisfies both these conditions first. Once this bookmark link is created, your viewers can navigate from your source box to your destination box connected using that bookmark link. This is a very useful pattern because it allows you to build logical feedback loops, or it allows you to separate your business logic in different modules that can be connected using these bookmark links on specific branches. Once again, please use this feature thoughtfully. When you build your flowchart in DeciZone platform, it could become the single place where your author can maintain it and where everyone else can interact with your streamlined process flowchart. So for an author, maintaining this flowchart is a very important aspect of driving continuous improvement in your processes. We already saw how you can grow a flowchart branch by just adding new boxes. But from time to time, you might have to introduce new boxes even in the middle of your flowchart. For that, you can use the Insert tool for inserting boxes between two different existing boxes. Let's go ahead and insert a new decision box right here between the yes corner of the decision box and this statement box. You need to pick the right tool for this from the edit menu. Note that the diagram reminds you what is going to be inserted and how the green connections are going to be created. You just give the caption for that box and click Save to insert this box between the two existing boxes. It works the same way for inserting other types of boxes, and so you have a lot of flexibility in maintaining your flowcharts. Once again, keep in mind that the edit menu is contextual based on your current box. This means that the different insert tool will be available when it makes sense and not when it will not be applicable. While editing your flowchart, you might need to delete a box with either an outgoing or incoming bookmark link. Before you can delete this box, you need to first delete one by one each of the outgoing or incoming bookmark links. And to delete any bookmark link, just go to the source box of that bookmark link, go to the edit menu, and use the delete bookmark link tool to permanently remove the bookmark link. Once you have deleted all the bookmark links for your box, you will be able to delete that box. Deleting decision boxes has some special consideration as well. A decision box can only be deleted if at least one of the yes or no corners have no boxes connected. In other words, if you have boxes connected on both the corners of the decision box, you are not able to delete this decision box. In this situation, you have to delete at least one whole branch before you can delete this decision box. Deleting MCB boxes has a similar consideration. A MCB box can only be deleted when there are no boxes connected after all of the choices except the default choice. In other words, if you have a situation like this where the default choice has a connected box and one more choice has a box connected after it, in this case, you will have to delete the box after all the non-default choices first, and then only you will be able to delete the MCB. Now let's look at a flowchart box. We recommend that you keep the caption of your boxes in very simple, familiar language, as if you are having a conversation with the viewer and the viewer is responding to it using the response buttons. Apart from the caption itself, you are also able to show an image, attach a document, or a link to some other website on your box. When this box comes in the center layer, your image will be displayed for a few seconds. You can view the image again by clicking on the image icon. This image could be a screenshot for training purposes, or it could even point out items for guidance purposes. The viewer is also able to send a box-specific feedback to the author of the flowchart by clicking the feedback icon when available. These features allow you to provide enough context around the logic of your flowchart and allows you to provide the right information only when it's relevant based on the viewer's choices. Now, let's say we are happy with the new flowchart we just created and would like to share with others. Sharing and other features are available in the Edit Versions window as flowchart properties. Let's take a brief look at how sharing works in DeciZone platform. By default, any flowchart you create is private, and only the users like the author who have the edit privilege for this flowchart can access and edit it. Your flowchart at this point is not ready to be shared because you have not set its status to public. In other words, unless you make its status public, Your flowchart will not be visible to other users under its goal. But before you make a flowchart public, you need to identify a master version for your flowchart. Once we set the master version, you will be able to change its status to public, and other logged in DeciZone users can see this flowchart under its goal. The master version flag lets the author control which version of the flowchart will be shown to all the users that have access to this flowchart. The author can change the master version to some other version behind the scenes, and from that point onwards, all the viewers of this flowchart will be seamlessly shown the new version. So once again, making a flowchart public lets other logged in DeciZone users to discover your flowchart in the category tree under its goal. When you have the public flowchart open, you can copy the link in the address bar and send it to other users. When they click on the link and log into their DeciZone account, they will be able to access this flowchart as long as its status is still public. There is another way to share your flowchart with people who don't yet have a DeciZone account, like your customers. We call it published flowchart, and unlike public flowchart, when you publish a flowchart, you get a unique URL link that can be shared with anyone for accessing the flowchart. Published flowchart URL links are ideal for embedding into your website so your audience can easily follow them to go through your flowchart. Also note that published flowcharts are accessible only in view mode. To be able to edit any flowchart, one needs to be logged into their DeciZone account, and they need to have the edit privilege for that specific flowchart. For every flowchart you create, you can set several properties to give your viewers a better experience with your flowchart. The platform gives your flowchart a default name, but you might want to give your flowchart a more suitable name. You can provide an easy to understand description for your flowchart. Here you can provide some related and helpful keywords which your users might naturally think of when they are looking for your flowchart. These properties help your viewers when you share your flowcharts. Congratulations for making it through the training number 2. We covered a lot of ground here. We talked in detail about creating, modifying, and sharing your DeciZone flowcharts. In case you are wondering, all these editing and sharing features are available on your mobile browsers, so not being near your computer is not a valid excuse anymore. Check out our other videos in the training series. We have designed the platform so that you can create and modify your flowcharts in a matter of minutes, even on your mobile phone, whenever and wherever you get that great idea. Our goal is to provide you a great experience while you enable confident decisions for your audience. If there is anything we can do to make the platform work better for you, please do not hesitate to let us know by contacting the DeciZone team. Happy flowcharting.